Hello and welcome to I Love Energy Medicine. My name's Nick Hansinger. I'm the president of Energy Mastery, and I'm here with
Sheevaun Moran, CEO and founder of Energy Mastery.
I'm really excited that we're doing this. Just the other night, we did a Q&A session on Facebook Live. We got a ton of great questions in, and it was really just a wonderful opportunity to be able to hear the conversation that some people are having in their own heads about this elusive energy medicine, energy healing thing that people are exploring and starting to find what it is that they're actually looking for and talking about, so that conversation can unfold in a more productive way rather than just rolling around in their heads. So that's why I'm excited. Sheevaun, why are you excited to be here today?
I'm excited because we spent an hour and a half, and it felt like we spent about a minute just helping people and answering their questions. And I think there's a lot to unpack, and it's super important because it's not a tangible thing in most people's minds. It's energy. So it's everywhere. We have Wi-Fi, but we use it. We don't understand it. And now we've introduced over the past, I've been doing this 20 years, we've introduced energy healing, energy medicine in a more formulaic manner. And there has to be some language set. There has to be some dissemination so people understand where to go, what it is, and how it improves their lives and what they can use it for.
Yeah. Now, you've been around, energy medicine and these techniques in some way, shape, or form have been around for thousands of years, but over the past 20 years since you've been a part of this, I know that the conversation has changed significantly in that time. Can you tell us just a little bit about, what was it like when you started, and where is it that we're heading now with this conversation?
Ooh, yeah. So it's kind of like when I started as a business person. I came in through the business avenue. I wasn't seeking, I wasn't looking, I wasn't, none of those things. I'd healed my own body from a near-death blood poisoning experience, and then I took a class, and I realized I'd been using this thing for all of my life. I just didn't know that it was a formula, or that there was something specific that, people categorized it as. So I saw, when I first started, like I would use all of these scientific terms so people would kind of get it. And and I'd have to make it really, really, really tangible, like a 5-year-old can understand. And it's not a whole lot different today. However, people have at least expanded their vocabulary of what energy medicine is, what it isn't. And a lot of people are experimenting with it. Like when I first started, I was kind of like the person they'd say, I don't know what you do, but all my friends rave about you, and they're super healthy, and they look amazing, and they have more income than ever. So I want what they have. And that's really how it all started. And so it was, of course, I had my own formula that I'd created, but it wasn't such that it was easy to describe to somebody out in the business world or out in the non-Qigong or esoteric world. And alternative science is super alternative science. It was super, super, super fringe when I started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. It brings us to one of the questions that I've heard a lot. And as you know, Sheevaun, I talk to hundreds and hundreds of people about energy mastery and about energy medicine, and in general. And one of the most common things that I hear is, geez, I would really like to have a greater spiritual connection. I'd really like to have a clearer channel to my intuition, so that decision-making isn't so difficult, isn't so heavy, and that I can make faster decisions in my life. And I always think that's very interesting, because there's a flip side of that, wherein they're the same people who oftentimes need to really overthink things. And so they get stuck around that decision-making process, want to do things differently, but just can't seem to get over that hump. And that's what I'd really like to open up for us to discuss a few minutes here today. So Can you get us started on that? What are your thoughts on that as far as that higher connection?
Yeah, this is something that isn't covered very often, like almost never. I don't know that we've really even talked about it that much, except in our 4-day course. So it's kind of like, think of your body like a car. This is probably the easiest descriptor I can give, is think of your body as a car. And we've heard of cholesterol, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. We've heard of constipation. We've heard of nausea. All of these things that are pretty common to the physical body, okay, our vehicle. Mm-hmm. And so it depends upon what we eat, how much water we drink, et cetera, how our body is going to function. There are lots of elements to it. But the most important piece about your spiritual connection, when you vibrate at a lower rate of vibration, is it's kind of like the spark plugs in your car. I don't know if cars still have spark plugs. I know mine doesn't right now, but spark plugs in your car. And they're not firing, or at least one of them isn't firing. And they really, you got to keep clicking it and clicking it and clicking it and trying until finally something connects. Or there is not a high quality of gas, and the engine is not super happy with that. And you click it and it goes, and it's kind of good and it runs, but you can tell that it's not in tip-top shape. So same thing with our spiritual connection. When we deal with cleaning up people's energy and teaching them how to do it for themselves, we teach this from the premise of, yes, you can heal your body and heal your world, and amazing things can happen for you. And if you're a practitioner, you have the ability to not get sick again. And those are brilliant. However, the one untouched space is the more you learn to clean up your energetics, the better your spiritual connection. The better it grows, the more aligned you are, so that you can hear those impulses, those intuitive hits, because we have intuitive hits, but we've actually gotten so distant from trusting them, we actually don't know how to identify the truth and not. And that's how maybe some of these folks are getting stuck in their head, because maybe they've been let down, they've made choices based upon their lower intuition rather than their truest, highest spiritual self and intuitive self that happens once you clean up your energetics.
And I think you hit the nail right on the head there, where there's a sense of mistrust with them, with their own selves, that, I thought I was listening to my intuition before and it turned out horribly, or it really wasn't what I wanted or what I expected. And so now I want to listen to my intuition, but I've done that so many times that I don't know what to trust. And it appears, this is one of the things that I hear, is it seems that the only safe way to make a decision is that it needs to make sense in their head, and they need to be able to see it. So how do they get over that hump? That seems like a kind of a gap there, and a little bit of a Pandora's box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's really simplifying things. Like I just took that little story and made it tangible to somebody, a listener, I hope, anyway. And that it's, by the time here's how it kind of goes for spiritual teachings. By the time you're ready, you have gone through enough crap. And the teacher shows up, or the teachings show up, and it isn't always going to make sense, and it isn't always going to feel good, and it isn't always going to be exactly the way you thought it was going to be. It isn't all of the things that you said it needed to happen the exact formulaic way. It's not going to show up that way. It is going to show up, and it's going to be presented to you, and it's going to be like, bam, that's it. And your higher, most intuitive higher soul self has sent the impulse so strong that you finally got here, and you're a yes, and then you're like, no, I'm going to let my lower intuition on board, and then I'm going to make my brain do all of this stuff. And the brain has no business in this other than trying to figure out how to get the logistics handled. That's it. It's really a yes, and the logistics are the thing. The brain is a great logistics person. And it's really the heart and the higher soul that really, really allow that soul's development, spiritual development, whatever spiritual practice somebody is. That's why I love energy mastery so much, because it bridges any spiritual path and opens it up to whatever a spiritual path somebody is on, to even a greater connection. So the bridge is, yes, listening, but really listening from your heart and your highest self, and saying more of those yeses to your highest soul self, and everything else really starts to fall in place. Sounds simple, I know.
Yeah. It sounds really simple, and in practice, it can feel deeply uncomfortable. I think that's one of the things that you mentioned I wanted to circle back to, is there's this expectation that when you have that knowing, that, it'll feel right. Everything will just feel right and it'll feel good. I personally have found the exact opposite to be true. Not all the time, but many of the times where I knew something was really right for me, and it scared the crap out of me. Mm-hmm. So if you go based on a feeling, it seems like a pretty sticky area to get in. Is there a role that feelings play here, or is it just something that it's best to just leave aside?
Yeah, the feels are nice, and yet they're going to get in the way. And it doesn't mean that you don't have feelings. It's just whenever you're looking for your spiritual path and your spiritual growth and that next level on your spiritual path, is the feels are going to actually clog things up and delay things. Always, always, always.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I found that to be in my own practice, where the spiritual calling and those higher callings, they're clear. And it tends to, just as for me personally, start to activate some of those lower emotions. And if I was waiting to find, for that perfect feeling in order to step in, I would have never done it based on that. But the irony of it is that those were the very things that really needed to be released as soon as that decision was made on a soul level, in order for me to take that next step. And that's for me, that was a profound insight. I don't know if anybody else listening can relate to that, or Sheevaun, maybe you have a little bit more insight on that as well.
I would say you covered it really well. I would say you nailed the thing that I've heard the most over the course of the years. As it has gotten noisier, I've been doing this a while, so it has gotten noisier with a lot more, confusion about, what's a good path and what's not a good path. And then you add all of these other plant journeys and things like that were really not even close to a conversation when I began all of this. And so there's a lot more noise, and with more noise, you actually have to clean up your energetics more and more, so that you can allow your higher self to communicate more easily, so that you actually have the ability to make better decision making, and so that you can work through those lower emotions that you were talking about that need to be addressed.
That's a really great point. And when we look at our modern world, it's not just the noise of the world. That's one aspect of it, and you're right on with that. It's gotten much, much noisier over the past, let's just say 20 years. It's been happening for a longer time, but just over the past 20 years. Now, throw on top of that the information age, and where in the past many of these little things about, say, energy medicine or this spiritual journey or this kind of new age thing here or there, they would have kind of been hiding in some of the darker corners. Well, now in the information era, all of it's all out there. And so it's like information overload, which seems like a really cool and exciting thing until you recognize that it's just more noise clogging up the channel to the higher intuition and the higher spiritual calling, which I just think is really interesting.
And it really, you sparked something in me. It allows people to shop. and I call it window shop, and really without really diving deep into true mastery, thus energy mastery. Yeah, you can learn about energy. There are lots of ways to learn about it, truly. But if you really want to master it, just for yourself, it doesn't have to be for any other reason, but just for yourself, and really have your life and light of your life turned on, that's when the mastery comes in, and that's when your higher spiritual calling, they line up, and it is yummy.
It's exciting. It's an accelerant. Everything that's happening in life gets to move at a much more ease-filled pace, which is a lot faster than trying to think everything out. I can only speak that from my own experience. And I think that's one of the most exciting things that's happening with this whole conversation, is that now with Energy Mastery, one, it's about mastery. It's not about shopping, and it's not about getting off on a whole bunch of other weird trails. It's really about getting to the core and the center and the depth that is within each and every person, and letting all of those beautiful gifts come out so that their bright and shining and spiritual selves really come forth into the world. And having the tools to be able to do that via the live trainings. Like, I know that you've spent 20 years putting this system together in such a way that that there's an ability to just take it into your life and to utilize it immediately. And I just think that's so exciting for the world, and so exciting for where we're ultimately headed with raising consciousness and really creating and contributing something of much higher value in the world. So thanks for that, first and foremost. And secondly, is there anything that you want to share more about that?
No, I think we did a really, I loved this conversation, because it's one I don't get to share with folks. And I think it's super important to know that your energetics matter to your spiritual journey. And doesn't matter what you're doing, work on the inside. If you're not working on the energetics as well, it's going to take longer, and it's going to be harsher or muckier or more of a wild ride. That's why I put it together like I did, so it could be more ease-filled, and we get to keep developing and growing, based upon what society is doing. I have all these cool tools. I can't wait to get out there. So now I'm excited. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, well, me too. So for anybody out there who's listening and you want to see a little bit more about what's going on at Energy Mastery, you can simply go to energymastery.com. And there you'll find a class schedule and some links to click to learn a little bit more about some of the classes. If you're one of those people who already know, if you're actually tapping into that higher calling, you're here for a reason and you're ready to take that step right now, go to energymastery.com/apply, and you'll find a form there to fill out, and we will definitely have a conversation to help you find your place in that and start to get these tools in your life.
And I love energy medicine. It's such a cool concept, right? Let's do it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and who would ever thought that this would be a thing and that we'd be doing a show about this? But I'm so excited to be bringing this conversation out. So, Sheevaun, thank you so much for being a part of this today, and can't wait to see everybody on the next one.